Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Palace. And I'm smiling, but more in a negative way because it has been a little bit of a whirlwind, a roller coaster of a week. 2 losses in a row. We don't get a lot of these under Oliver Glasner. I am joined, as always, by Henry. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, buzzing, mate. What a day. What a brilliant day to support Palace, eh? Honestly, it just feels like one of them. It's been an absolute shit show. Like, in every sense, the game was awful. And then the reaction has been awful as well. So I feel like we've got quite a lot to chat about.
Yes, for sure. We'll chat briefly at first about Strasbourg and Man United. For me, in terms of an away day, it was one of the best I've ever had. Strasbourg, obviously, the result disappointed, but to be able to do these things is still surreal. However, mate, your thoughts on Strasbourg, kind of in a nutshell. Obviously, we're going to talk about big chances missed yet again, and that's going to be a recurring theme today. But yeah, how did you feel about all that, mate?
I honestly, I was just saying to Luke off air that I was on a string of overnights last week. So that kind of set me up for what my second to last shift, and honestly did not set me up very well. I was actually fuming after Strasbourg because it that was easily our toughest group game, easily, and it was there for us on a plate, as so many games have been this season. And once again, we didn't take chances. And I remember I'd used the word pathetic in terms of I do think it's pathetic that professional footballers cannot score open goals. I think that's embarrassing. I think any professional footballer should be able to score the chances that Ismail Assar and Adam Water missed. I have no idea how either of them missed those, let alone the kind of more chances that Mateta has, all the other chances that we had, Pino's chance late on. It was just an awful display of finishing, as it was today, as it was at Everton, as it was against Bournemouth, despite us scoring 3 goals. It really is becoming the tale of our season, and I am so sick of it. But it's kind of getting to the point where all you can do is laugh because it's actually just ridiculous. It's every single week, man.
Yeah, hilariously, I've never seen us smile so much in these videos, but we are today. But yeah, as you can tell, guys, we're not too happy. I'll just quickly read 2 comments as we are live stream as well whilst we're recording today. Anyone we are linked with in January, Daniel, we are going to do a transfer special kind of episode soon, so we'll talk about that more there. But there are a few links, of course. Palace Man Mason, you're right, mate. Summer window was a joke. Said it at the beginning of the season, and it's rearing its head now. So yeah, I think this is going to be the story of today, of this video. We will be talking about Glasner's comments as well. Yeah, it does not look like the summer spending went well. It looks like a lot of people were positive about it, but hindsight, and you can use hindsight because you can be critical of a transfer window after it's happened, even though you thought it might have been good at the time. It has not worked. So, that is frustrating. That is what it is. But yeah, the Strasbourg game, the missed chances were so frustrating. And for me, the positives out of the losses at the moment is the fact we are creating the chances. It's clearly not a tactical issue in my head. And I think we all know this, obviously, but it's, of course, there's little things Glasner could be doing to correct it, but there is a lot of positives in terms of how we're actually setting up, creating the chances. And it's just like, if we could take these chances, that would be brilliant. But yes, we lost to Strasbourg. That was frustrating. And then today we go 1-0 up against United, just like we did midweek. And we concede 2 in the second half again. And of course, that is the Europa Conference League fatigue. But also, mate, how did you find that game overall? Like, first half for me was really good. And then second half, it was dreadful, right?
Yeah, but then I'd agree. You say it's really good, but we've had a really good half, and we've scored 1 goal,
Yeah.
which is from the penalty spot. Like, how many times is this going to happen? It's just ridiculous at this point. And I was fuming after the game this morning because this Manchester United team are shite. They are shambolic. They are awful. They're a laughing stock at the minute. And we literally had it. Their 2 goals are some of the worst goals I've ever seen us concede. Henderson has to be better, especially for the first one. It's awful goalkeeping. The second one, I've got no idea what the kind of thought was between Wharton, Sarr, Pino, and the entire wall. Kamada, there's the still as Mount shoots, and Kamada's just stood off to one side, still blocking as if he's in the wall. He's not in front of the goal. I have no idea what he was even doing in the first place. I've rarely, again, I said it after Strasbourg, I've rarely felt kind of angry after a Palace game, and that's a kind of testament to what Glasner's done. But in the last couple of games, and this is where it's really hard for me because I know it's not the players' fault. There is no way it's the players' fault. I will never blame the players or Glasner. There is one man who's to blame for what's happening right now. I called it in the summer. I got loads of stick for it from a lot of the older heads in the Palace fan base, and they'll know who they are if they're listening to this. And I'm going to clip this up and chuck it on my Twitter, so they'll definitely see it. And I got so much stick, and I feel like what's happening right now is there's a massive split in the Palace fan base. And that split is between the people that are happy to kind of twiddle our thumbs and think, oh, we won an FA Cup. Like, yay, life's never going to get better. We should all be really grateful. And then the people that also think, amazing, we won an FA Cup, what an achievement, but let's push on. Like, this is probably the best opportunity that we will ever have as Palace to really break into the kind of top six. If we won today, we would have been fifth. We would currently be sat fifth, above Brighton and Sunderland, Manchester United, Liverpool. Literally, 1 point, 2 points off of second, and we had that chance, and we just completely blown it against a team that are so below standard, that are so much worse than us. And the reason is because we're absolutely knackered. That second half, yes, the first half we create chances. Mateta missing, Sarr missing, Pino missing again and again and again. Wharton, another great chance, hits it straight at the keeper. But the second half, we were just awful. And you can tell the players, their legs have just completely gone entirely. And there's only one reason for that, and that's because we didn't invest properly in the summer. And if you can look at what happened today in that second half and try and tell me that we did what we needed to in the summer, and we brought in adequate depth and more so kind of quality in that depth. It's all good, well and good having bodies like Cristante Suchet, but is that player going to come on the pitch and all he's going to do for 12 minutes is give the ball away and pass it off the pitch? Because that's no good. You need players that can come in and impact the game, and we just don't have it.
Yes, so you've obviously said a lot there, so let's drop it into bits here. We had more chances again today. We should have taken them. No club is going to take all their chances in a football match, so that needs to be taken into account. But the level we are missing is genuinely ridiculously high, and that is definitely worrying cause for concern. I think for me, at least we are creating the chances, because we have had teams of old who just lose these games without creating anything. So they're definitely them good signs. However, and everything you said is completely fair there, and it is definitely coming down to fatigue. It's mental fatigue. It is a lot of players aren't experienced with the Thursday, Sunday. A lot of players in our squad haven't played in Europe. So this is another thing. And it is so frustrating when we could attack this top six, because, the Liverpools aren't performing well. The Cities aren't performing well. Yes, City are up there, but they're not performing well. They're inconsistent, Bournemouth have dropped off lately, and they were the ones who everyone was suggesting would be up there, At the moment, you've got Chelsea battling second, third. They're looking really good now, but, they are prone to bad results as well. So everyone could beat each other this season, and this is the season we had a big chance, and you want to be able to compete in both competitions, because this is history making for us. And sadly, at the moment, it looks like we're going to have to sacrifice a competition because of because of the summer, realistically. So we'll talk about the summer transfers quickly, and then we'll go into Glasner comments. For me, I'll be completely honest here. I thought the signings looked decent. Like, I'd seen bits of Uche. I thought that was good squad depth. I saw Sosa in terms of not like what he'd done on the pitch, but I thought we finally got a left back in. Hindsight is now telling me they were shocking signings. Sosa's got suspended for Europe and he's injured now. So Mitchell's had no cover. And Uche is clearly not favoured by Glasner. And if you're not favoured by Glasner, you're not going to get game time.
And just to jump in with that point, because I think it's a really important one. And I had a lot of people kind of bringing this point to me this afternoon. Glasner's he's been given squad depth and he's not using it. Do you really think that Oliver Glasner wanted Cristante Suchet or Borna Sosa? He didn't sign Romain Esse. These are not players that Glasner signed. Look at the players that Glasner did want and did sign, because they're all starting consistently. Daichi Kamada, Yeremy Pino, Maximus Lacroix, JD Camvo. These players are trusted and they are coming into the squad. I think that's a really crucial thing. There's one thing, which is Parish and the higher-ups bringing in bodies which they think might help to kind of bolster the squad. purely in the sense of numbers, not even in terms of quality or what Glasner wants. And it's a completely different thing. Oliver Glasner hand-picking the players he wants and the club going and getting them. That's just not what's happened. It's clear to see. And, I know that people love, again, similar people love to say, like, none of us really know what's going on at the club. You don't need to know exactly what's going on day in, day out to understand basically what's happening. Glasner's come out and said it in the press conference afterwards, which we'll get onto, but he's literally said that the club have let the players down. They've let him down. And ultimately that means they're letting the fans down. It's not rocket science. We all saw it coming, every single one of us. And I know it sounds really, really kind of, I can't even think of the spoil, I guess, because we're sat in 9th place. We're on 19 points after 13 games. And, we're in Europe. But I think the anger and the frustration and the infuriation, I think, for me, is that we could be so much higher. And, you think we've dropped out 3 points today. We dropped 2 points against Chelsea, 2 points against Bournemouth, 3 points against Everton. That's almost, that's 10 points right there. And, obviously, like you said, we can't always score all our chances, but no team in the league has missed more big chances than us. And it's got to the point now where when we were in on goal today, I wasn't confident whatsoever, wasn't expecting us to hit the net because we're just not. I have no idea what's going on. And that probably is down to mental fatigue, physical fatigue. They're probably just absolutely shattered. 9 out of that 11. I'm sorry that I'm ranting a bit. I'm like,
It's
it has
right,
riled
mate.
me up a bit. Like 9 out of that 11 that started today played basically the entire game on Thursday in Strasbourg. And then Glasner turns around and who's he got on his bench? We're a goal down. We're chasing the game. We need a goal. He turns around, looks to his bench, and who's he got? Justin Devaney and Jefferson Lerma, who, with the greatest respect to them, are not the players you want to be bringing on when you need a goal. They're just not. And that's no slight on them. 2 good players, 2 important players that have done well for Palace and can do well for Palace. But when you're chasing a game, you need good attacking depth. Cristante Succe is not that guy. He came on, for 15 minutes. All he did was give the ball away. He's clearly not favoured. Yeah, you can talk about confidence and he's not up to rhythm, but he just clearly isn't good enough. Romain Esse, for whatever reason, Glasner doesn't rate him. And Oliver Glasner is, can I just remind you, the greatest manager in the history of our club. His judgment on a player should be enough for any fan to think, okay, he probably knows what he's talking about. He needs backing. And now the fact that Ismaila Sarr is injured and we probably won't see him until after AFCON is that's absolutely horrific to even consider.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, like you said, sorry for your frustrations, but I think the frustrations are coming more from, this manager. And to be fair to him, Parish, what he brought in with the squad last season, for a most part, even though it was late, they have given us this ambition or this mentality because we won something. And you see so many clubs, they push on, they don't push on, and this is us. We are 50-50 right now. This could literally go either way. It doesn't help. Look, it doesn't help, and Glasner's fully going to be in it for himself. And we can't give him the world as a manager. You can't just give him everything. But it doesn't help that his contract expires this summer. So that's going to increase the worry or the frustration when we don't, get these kind of victories that we think we deserve or that we should have got, because you think, what's going to help? If you do get them victories, if you do push higher up the table, that's going to convince him and that's going to help the club as a whole. That's going to convince players to join and stuff like that. So it feels like these 2 results this week has left us a little bit in limbo a lot. So let's quickly dive into a few of Glasner's comments today. He literally said these after the game. So first thing he said, squad depth is the issue. I've never talked about it, but today it feels like it's time because I want to protect the players. The energy level was not that high at the end. They looked a bit fatigued. And I'll just say one more paragraph before I head over to you, mate. I want to protect them because I know how hard they're working every day. It was our 22nd game, United's 14th. That's what we are facing. It's now time to mention it. It's clearly our fault. We missed the opportunity to strengthen the depth of the squad in summer. We knew the schedule. We knew Sol would go to AFCON. Nothing was surprising. When you play European football for the first time in your history, let's invest instead of save. We saved, and this is what we're facing. The group of players are giving everything. No blame for the players because they're leaving their hearts on the pitch. Mate, they are big comments, aren't they?
They're massive, and I think it really shows. For me, and we don't know what's going on day to day, but that he's kind of laid it all on the table there for everyone to see. The biggest part for me is how much he's defending the players. That to me says that there's frustration within the dressing room actually with what's going on, and that's just not really surprising, is it? You know, I'm sure that every single one of those Palace players knew that they were capable of beating Manchester United at their full strength, without question. There's no doubt. If we were fully fit, we would have continued to play how we did for the first half, and we would have won that game. As would we probably have beaten Everton, as we would probably have got over the line against Bournemouth, and, you know, even in other games this season where it's not quite gone our way, it probably would have, you know, even midweek against Strasbourg. It reeks to me of conversations being had between the manager and the players where all are on the same page that they've been let down. And that's really not good. It's really not good, because we look at the atmosphere around the club last season and how much of a family it was. And suddenly that kind of turns very, very sour. You know, when the players clearly aren't happy, they clearly don't trust the board. The manager clearly, I mean, he said it, has no faith in the board. He basically sees it that, you know, we had the chance to push on and Parish decided to save his money and put it in his back pocket instead of spending it. And that's not going to be a very promising sign for any future managers or players that we want to try and bring in, especially with January around the corner where we need to bloody bring some people in. I mean, it's just, they are big words. And he says, you know, I haven't said it. I mean, he has indirectly hinted at all of those things in the past, you know, even in the first weeks of the season. But for him to actually come out and say it in black and white now, and this is kind of what I mean, like when people like myself, or I know Bobby's kind of posted that tomorrow there's a kind of story coming out about why Glasner should leave Palace at the end of the contract, which was obviously quite a sensationalist headline. It's going to get a lot of clicks, but ultimately, by the sounds of it, is going to make a lot of sense when you kind of read the article. You know, you can kind of come for us and say you don't know what you're talking about, but the manager, the man at the center of this, has literally come out and said what we have both been saying the entire time. So, and obviously not just us, loads of Palace fans that I speak to daily, you know, always say the same thing, and we all get shut down by similar people and get told that we're being over the top and spoiled and dramatic and pathetic and etc etc etc. The man has come out and said it. So are you going to believe it now, or are you just going to keep twiddling your thumbs and thinking about the FA Cup and praising Lord Parish? I just think it's ridiculous, and it, to be honest, really does my head in, mate.
Guys, can you tell that Henry's in a great mood tonight, lads?
But
there's a lot of sensible points in there. You know, I just want to emphasize that is not just a rant that's come out of Henry. He is saying a lot of stuff. You know, there is a lot to talk about there, and Glasner technically is agreeing with what he's saying. You know, I think what the Palace fan base has done this season as well is, you know, we've wanted a bit more squad depth. You know, we have rued the missed chances. We thought what could have been, but we've been enjoying the season. But I feel like there is a huge herd mentality for Glasner, understandably so, because of what he's done for us, and because he said it. It's now time for us to, you know, back him. You know, because we've supported, I would say, and we've all carried on. And I'm not trying to say, oh, this is bought out, this is all that. You know, this is just a big warning. And look, there is January. Glasner kind of believes that's a bit too late. He carried on saying in January we need to correct what we missed in the summer. To be honest, we would have played 34 games by January the 10th. That's about 65% of the season. So he's kind of saying it's a bit too late, even though we need to rectify the mistakes.
We could be out of Europe by then.
Yeah.
But we could be. We shouldn't be, but we could be.
So, you know, this is a thing. This is an issue. But the positive side, as Glasner said, we are still in a very good position in all competitions. That's the positive side. Of course, that's the positive side. So before we dive a bit more into the comments and stuff like that, top 10 still, 3 points from Champions League playoffs. That is still very decent position in quarterfinal of the Carabao Cup, and we can still automatically qualify for the conference. So there's a lot to play for. But Henry, with this squad we've currently got, obviously we can't do anything with this squad until January. Let's say Sar's back sooner rather than later. How do you think Glasner should play December? Let's forget the transfers and stuff like that. Do you sadly think we need to sacrifice a competition? Do you think there's got to be some heavy rotation somewhere along the line? And if so, where would you put it?
It's really hard, isn't it? I think ultimately, yeah, we're going to have to start looking at sacrificing competitions, and that's really sad because Glasner is a manager who will want to and believe that he can go out and challenge to and potentially win every competition he's playing in. And ultimately, it's hard to kind of question that, considering those kind of extra points that we could have picked up here and there, which granted maybe not, but even just with the 3 points today, we're fourth, and we've got Burnley and Fulham coming up.
Yeah.
We really could have challenged for every single competition. I think he's going to have to sack off the League Cup just because of when the fixtures land. And when these quarterfinals are against Arsenal, you're playing Arsenal. To be honest, it's pretty much a write-off. They're the best team in probably the world at the minute. There's no point, in my opinion, even trying. Especially if you're going to rotate, you may as well just fully rotate and just sack the game off, which is a shame, and he won't like to do that. But ultimately, we need to prioritise Europe and the Premier League. Obviously, the FA Cup's not really in full swing yet, but I just think for me, it's a shame because I think that fully fit, we could win the Conference League quite comfortably. Genuinely, having watched Strasbourg play, who are probably, for me, the second favourites after us to win it. We're comfortably better team than them. Comfortably, we should have beaten them. I think when they went 2-1 up, we probably should have been 3 or 4-1 up, if memory serves, with the 2 open goals and Mateta missing again. But for me, sacrifice the League Cup. We need to focus on the league because now we're in a position where we might get a bad draw if we end up being in the knockouts for the playoffs, I should say, for the knockouts of the Conference League, and then you're knocked out of that competition, and that's another potential path into Europe axed. So I think we need to focus on the league because the league is so open this year. I've never seen it this open before. I mean, as I said, we win back-to-back games against Fulham and Burnley, and suddenly you're on 26 points, which could see you as high as second. I mean, for me, you've got to focus on the league. But then ultimately as well, two more games in the conference, and you win both of those, we're through pretty likely anyway.
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting though, because I have been seeing on social tonight a lot of people saying focus on the League Cup and the conference because they want the glory. And this is the thing. It's people like Palace fans are going to disagree on it. It's going to be an impossible task for someone like Glasner to do, especially with how he thinks. He just
won't. He's just going to go full strength in all of them, isn't he? He's going to try.
Yeah,
and it will come across that he's proven a point, won't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how December plays out for sure. A couple of comments we got of the people who are live joining us. Warren Fossey. Thing is, the amount of chances we are missing and not killing games in the first half, etc., is biting us on the arse. For example, past 2 games are evidence of that. Same with the Bournemouth game. That is right to a point. Of course, that is completely right. There is some blame towards the players in terms of, Mateta hasn't scored a non-penalty goal since October, against Bournemouth. That in the Premier League, that is not good enough for the quality of player we know is there. He is lacking big confidence. But then again, part of the reason that clubs do miss chances, don't they? But we don't have anyone else we can rely on if these players are missing chances. And it shouldn't be about winning games in the first half. It needs to be about winning games in the 90 minutes. And at the moment, for me, yes, part of the reason, a huge part is we're missing chances, but also we can't play 90 minutes because when the fixtures come along, the players are dead, they're tired, they're struggling. And that's when teams like Man United are made to look even better because they've not played for a week and they're running rings around us.
What was it you said earlier? How many games they played?
Who? United, they're in their 14th.
And we've played, what,
22, I think.
That's fucking ridiculous. I mean, there you go. We played 8 games more than them. I think we had 1.5 days to recover from Strasbourg.
Yeah, the fixture timing of this was actually horrendous. Like putting us the 12 o'clock
midday,
away in France. That was ridiculous in itself. And that's only helping one team and one team only there in Man United. But, this is an issue. Combine that with the big chances missed. I think, in my opinion, if we were not in Europe, we would be missing some big chances still. But in my head, it would not be as many because I just don't think the fatigue would be there. And I think this is quite a big part of the fatigue issue that we're having. And, Mateta having to play 90% of this season when he needs a break. He desperately, desperately needs a break to, see how it's going. But we've got to just play with what we've got. We've got to play with what we've got. But that's the issue. We got so much going on. It's so frustrating. And then I'll dive back into the last bit of Glasner quotes. I'm always thinking about what I can change first. And so it's my responsibility to find the right answers. We will definitely play a good season. If we would have done a few things better in the summer, it would have been even better. So, even when he's talking about himself there and trying to be positive, he's doing a little dig, isn't he, mate?
Yeah, but you can't blame him. You really
Yeah.
can't. Genuinely, and this is kind of like the premise of every argument I had over the summer with anyone that said that we, for some reason, shouldn't give him basically the keys to the city, was that this is the man that has come in. And for me, genuinely, and I've said this earlier, and apparently it's an awful take. I don't think we win the FA Cup last season without Glasner. I really don't see how that's that wild of a take. And therefore, it's not Steve Parish's victory or his success. It's Glasner's success for me and the players. Without that team and that manager specifically, no other manager wins us that FA Cup last year. No one. There's no question. Not Pep Guardiola, not Mikel Arteta, nobody. Oliver Glasner did. And therefore, you give this man whatever he wants. And like I said, genuinely, and I said it, I think at the start of the season, that if you backed him properly, and obviously we're never going to be able to give him 400 million like Liverpool do, but genuinely, if you could, he would win us everything. I have no doubt. He is that good of a manager, and he's going to go on. He's going to leave us maybe to Liverpool with what's going on with Arne Slot. He could go there, and they will win everything under him. Every single trophy they compete for, they will win because he is that good of a manager. He's the next serial winner in terms of coaches in Europe. I have no doubt of it. He's done it at Palace. That's kind of like the benchmark for me. You look at like a Thomas Frank. He had relative success at Brentford, but a couple of top 10 finishes, got the move to Spurs. They're not doing very well. He's probably going to get sacked. Oliver Glasner's actually won trophies at one of these smaller clubs in the Premier League. He will go on to do incredible things. Honestly, if I was him, I'd be bloody airing every bit of dirty laundry there was, because ultimately, you just deserve to be backed, and you've been completely let down. And I think that's the thing for me. It is a letdown. He has been let down, and I think that's important to note. To be honest.
Yeah, no, completely fair. And I think, like, maybe other managers you hear, they're a bit self-centered. They're a bit about it themselves. But I think Glasner is genuinely coming from a case where he wants to improve the club as a whole and improve the pedigree of this club and improve it for the fans as well. And we know that for a fact because you see the articles from the very in the know journo saying he's trying to improve everything off the pitch as well. He's trying to improve the facilities. He's trying to improve the scouting. He's not just trying to improve that starting 11 because he wants the best starting 11. He has looked at Crystal Palace and he's gone, there is a club that's got something that can push on. They have the good ingredients to push on and they just need that little kick. And he's trying to kick us there and he's getting friction. And that's where we're at. That is completely where we're at the moment. And that is sad. That is sad. And January is a huge test now. January is a huge test. It's not an easy transfer window. No club really wants to be spending in January because they know the prices are inflated. And everyone who's selling knows that clubs are desperate for their players and the price will go up. So that is obviously really depressing as well. You're getting back in the comments as well, mate, by the way. I'm animalistic as well. He was like, Mateta was gassed by the end of the first half. And he was, wasn't he? It was completely ridiculous. He was knackered. He was dead. And that was the issue. Nketiah was our Mateta and Sarr replacement. So Sarr going off so early completely destroyed us today because then you couldn't take off Mateta for Nketiah like he's been doing lately. Palace man Mason was like, it's a shame we lost to Larnaca and Strasbourg because the rotation could have been done in the other two games. So December wouldn't be as hectic. That is completely right as well. Let's talk a little bit about Larnaca because I think that's kind of been, the bit of the turning point in terms of that's where we kind of couldn't, that's where we had to be like, wow, this squad maybe isn't exactly what we needed. This depth isn't here. Hughes and Lerma maybe don't work in the middle and stuff. And I mean, from there, Henry, I feel like that's been a bit of the catalyst for the inconsistencies moving forward. Not in terms of the poor performance, but in terms of people realizing that, maybe we're not going to be able to compete in multiple competitions as much as we should be.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard though, because I don't want to sound like a bellend, but I don't know how people didn't see this coming. I really don't. It was screaming at all of us. I had Brighton fans in my replies saying, you need to strengthen because you're going to regret it, because they got absolutely slammed when they had Europe and they had a much stronger team than us, much stronger depth and better quality in depth too. And yet we were all kind of sitting around like, oh, I'm sure it'll be okay. Yeah, we're going to be fine. And then we're in November. We are in November, and it's already killing us.
Yeah,
Like
cracks are
that.
starting to show.
It's that's really worrying for me. The fact that we're so early in the season. Yes, 22 games played, but in terms of the calendar year, we are 3 months into the season, and we are absolutely dead on our feet. We look awful. We look knackered. We look like the second that we've run out of steam, we're just not capable, not only of competing at Premier League level, but also having any sort of options to kind of bring in to help compete. Like I said earlier, Uche isn't good enough. Esse isn't good enough. You look on the bench, the only attacker, as you mentioned, was Nketiah, and he can't come on late to impact the game because he's had to come on because Sarr's injured. So
Yeah.
that's why it's an issue. There's no kind of adaptation and kind of flexibility with the game plan. And that's not on Glasner and it's not on the players. It's not Ismaila Sarr's fault that he's got injured. It's not Glasner's fault that Sarr's got injured. It's, it's an unfortunate landing that he's twisted his ankle. Yeah, and to be honest, he probably shouldn't have stayed on the pitch as long as he did. He should have come off straight away in hindsight. But ultimately, what choice does Glasner have? He brings Nketiah on, and then that's it. There's no attacking options on the bench. So when you're then chasing the game late on, and you're 2-1 down, and you're desperate for a goal, all you have to turn around to is Deveni and Lerma. Who then?
Yeah.
Why? Just very quickly, why on earth at the end did Lerma not throw that long? Like, what was he even thinking?
Mate, this is just how the mental fatigue also comes into it as well. Normally, we'd have that mentality where Liverpool, for the perfect example, we're going to keep on diving in. We're going to keep on chucking the ball into the box. But I think Lerma just thought, it's not working. Let me try something different. And it's just like, no, mate, this is not the time to do that. Yeah. I mean, we could. I don't want us to go in circles and circles here because we literally could. Let's look a bit forward to Wednesday. How are you start? Sar's likely injured. How are you starting the attack? Because for me, I don't know if I fancy Nketiah as a right 10, and I kind of wanted to have a breather this game. So I was going to say something like Nketiah, Sarr, Pino. But now that Sar's probably injured, I don't know how you start it, right? You probably got to go Nketiah, Pino, and that's not really worked today.
Nketiah, Uche, Pino, I don't know. I mean, if you're going to give Uche minutes, give it to him against fucking Burnley. This should be a win again. But again, and I said this before this kind of spell of 3 games, that this could be a really important spell of games, just in terms of, okay, can we actually hack it? Because I know we've kind of worried about it, but actually, okay, can we do this? I'd say no, especially if we don't get 2 wins now against Burnley and Fulham, who we're better than, and we're better than Manchester United as well. I was kind of hoping for 9 points from these 3 games.
Yeah.
Already
Same.
now the limit is 6, and if we then don't get a result against Burnley on Wednesday night, that's suddenly really, really poor. And I think it's unfortunate that obviously the week we don't have any European football, we're having to play anyway in the Premier League. But there's no rest for the wicked, mate. And unfortunately, we're kind of becoming the enemies of our own success, or the victims of our own success, I should say.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll just do a couple more comments as well. Last few comments. Huge point, and there's nothing actually more that needs to be said after this one from Mason in terms of this comment, but huge point. We cannot leave our transfers in January till the last minute. Schedule in January is 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th in the FA Cup. Doesn't stop after December. Signings need to be quick. Exactly right. Henry, is there a world in which you can see us? I know we've got linked to Sasha Bowie recently, who's a right back who could be decent cover for Munoz by build. So they're semi-reliable, I would like to say. But the interest might be there. But can you see any attacking signings coming in on January the 1st or January the 6th even? Or do you think it's going to be another bit of a long haul? And I don't want you to just, fully go out here and slate it all. Can you actually see it is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean?
No, I'll be honest. It's a thing that I'm kind of noticing as I get older, that I don't want to say I'm really negative all the time about everything. I think I'm just quite realistic. I cannot see it happening. I really can't. And that's based on a lot of things. It's based on past transfer windows. It's based on the depth of our owners' pockets, the willingness to kind of take risks of our owners, which in some ways is a good thing, that we don't take too many risks. But for me, it's just not going to happen. By the sounds of it, yes, Sasha Boy will come in and he'll be a long-term replacement for Munoz. But is that great? It might mean that we even potentially lose Munoz in January. And then there's more talking about Ousmane Diamonde from Sporting, but that will only happen if Gay leaves in January. So the rumours that I've heard really are just incomings for outgoings kind of thing. I've heard very little about actually going out and trying to strengthen our team and our squad. And to be honest, I struggle to look around Europe and see players that we could feasibly go and collect, especially for kind of the fees that we'll be wanting to pay for them. We were linked with Christian Zolis in the summer from Club Brugge. He's had a brilliant start to the season because he's an unbelievable footballer. That was a player that Glasner really wanted, and we didn't sign him. And it feels like actually what's going to happen is we're going to end up looking back at a lot of the players we were linked with heavily because Glasner was a fan of them, and we're going to think, damn, we should have got them. But then also at the same time, you look back, we were linked with Reece Nelson. He's been shite. These players that have kind of jumped from kind of bigger Premier League teams to kind of lower level Premier League teams and not had much luck. Wouldn't be surprised if we try a Chelsea loan with Tyreek George potentially, not getting very many minutes. Obviously with Esteval doing so well, I'd probably take him as attacking depth, maybe a bit of excitement and flair. But then again, I don't think we're going to be going for anyone that Glasner doesn't want, because as we've seen with Uche, it's just a waste of time and money, especially money if these are permanent signings.
Yeah, I think I'm so gutted about Uche. I really thought he was going to be a good sign, and I thought we were definitely going to sign him permanently, but that's just not going to be the case, and he's disappointed. I mean, even his swing out in the last few minutes at Everton, that clearly he was getting minutes before that. He was, Sunderland looked like a bright spark. Did that against Everton, and I thought, and then you see him less and less, and that's completely how it is with Glasner, isn't it? A little bit. But even then, we're getting an attacker in because we're probably going to cancel his loan. So that's a little bit sad.
So depressing, isn't it?
We're not bolstering. Animalistics come back and said, and this is a really interesting point for discussion, and one we'll probably do more in depth at a future date. But, Glasner being in, has it kind of sacrificed our youth development a bit? Could we have done better with Franco and SA? I don't think Franco we could have done better with. In Brazil, he is not playing a lot. He is not doing well. I genuinely think that is just
he's stinking out.
Yeah, we have to accept that. There are failures at clubs. Let's just pray next time it's not a 20 mil failure. SA, of course, that's the other one. It's so hard because Wolves end of last season looked class. Liverpool end of last season looked rubbish. And he is a young player. For me, realistically, this is another issue and probably why Glasner's calling out the board, because he should have been loaned in the summer. And I've been adamant for that for the whole of the summer. You need these players to get minutes. And that's exactly what happened with Raksaki, because we didn't get the signings in. We got injuries under that summer with Roy Hodgson. We had to keep Raksaki. And he did get barely any minutes after a cracking loan with Charlton. And now he's on loan in Turkey, And this is the issue. We needed SA to get minutes. That's how you improve their development of the youth. Glasner shouldn't be relying on youth, in my opinion, in our academy yet, because we've pushed on another level, If we weren't in Europe and stuff, maybe, but these players, I'm guessing you agree with me, Henry, but, they needed loans, right, instead of us relying on them.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that, to be honest, that's a completely different topic that we could talk about for ages, because we have been historically awful with our selection of loans. I think genuinely the only good one I can think of recently is Raksaki to Charlton. And then, as we said, that was followed up with a year of nothing and just stagnation. And now, as you said, he's in Turkey, which is brilliant for a young player's development. SA should have had a loan. France, for anyone that hasn't been keeping up, Vasco da Gama is just absolutely stinking the gaff out. He's just not good. He was a real, no idea what was going on with him, and what they managed, what voodoo they managed to put on us to make us insert a Ballon d'Or clause into any sort of transfer negotiation for him. But Jesus, what a waste of money he is. And ultimately, I don't think Glasner has limited the kind of development of young players. He's given minutes to Caleb Kapora. He's given minutes to Rio Cardenas. Lots of these young players have been given minutes. Ultimately, though, we're in a situation where, especially at the end of last season, we were competing on all fronts to win and to finish high in the Premier League and to ultimately win an FA Cup, which we did. I'd rather have that than bleeding in a couple of youngsters that, to be honest, and this is the harsh reality, a lot of the time, a lot of these youngsters won't make it. and that's just how it is. They'll make it and they'll have careers in the game, but they won't be at Palace. You know, you think about the number of academy players that have come through in the last 10 years even, and maybe 2-3 of them have actually gone on to have careers at Palace or gone on even higher. You know, you think of Mitchell, Zaha, Wan-Bissaka. Struggle to think of anyone outside of that. You know, that's 3 out of God knows how many players that would have come through the system in that time. So I think that's just a harsh reality of that, but we won't stay on that point too long.
Yeah, and well, look, we're going to do a transfer kind of special transfer show the very near future. So yeah, definitely subscribe if you want to see that and don't miss out on that. This has been more about the Glasner comments. I think, to be honest, mate, if we carried on, we're just going to be going in circles, right? We hopefully it's not been too negative for anyone. I think it's not been negative. It's been just truthful, to be honest. It's not always going to be the highs of Crystal Palace. We can't always be flying high and positive. We have to criticize, you know, we have to look back and analyze stuff that's happened. And sadly, it's looking like that summer isn't going to be good enough for what we wanted to achieve, for what Glasner wanted to achieve yet. He's a miracle maker, though, as we know, and we surely can see a turnaround. Burnley and Fulham, 2 good games to have coming up next. They will be tough, both away from home. You know, that is going to be tough, but we're definitely better away from home at the moment, so that will probably help us. We'll see how the form goes. We'll see if it improves. You know, Henry, you got any lasting comments to say?
Just replying quickly to what someone said in the chat about Mateta potentially leaving. Nobody is going to be coming in for Mateta if he continues to play how he is. I think that's the point. I think Mateta might need to focus a little bit more on actually being good at football instead of screaming about wanting 100k a week. If you're scoring the chances that he's missing, you get paid 100k a week. If you're missing the chances you're missing, you don't get paid that money, and that's why he's not being paid that money at the minute. So I think for him, he needs to focus on that. Yeah, Burnley expect to win. At this point, I genuinely don't know. It just depends. You know, they're not awful. I don't want to say,
especially at Turf Moor.
Yeah, you know, they've got some decent players. And then Fulham are just a weird team. You know, really weird. Kind of just on a hiding to nothing, but then, you know, they seem to get good results here and there, and they've got some decent players. But yeah, I've got nothing more to add, mate. I think I've said all I need to do about Palace for now, and I just want to thank you because it's really allowed me to get everything off my chest. So cheers, mate.
That's all right, man. You know, it's a shame. It's a shame that, you know, it's got to be a bit more critical because it is such an exciting season. It is going to be an exciting season. I still have full faith we can do really big things this season. Let's just hope we get a little bit of luck our way in terms of the chances. You know, let's not miss as many. Let's hope this is a bit of a turn, like a learning curve. Let's hope this is a turning point, and we'll see what happens. As always, do not forget to like and comment if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe. We will have another video or podcast out next week, so don't forget about that as well. And yeah, we'll see you later.